Hi there, welcome to Effective Communication Part 1, brought to you by the Edmonton Oliver Primary Care Network. My name is Vanessa, and I will be leading the presentation today. I am a registered provisional psychologist, and I also have a co-lead here with me today. So,
hi everyone, my name is Candice Hamilton. Thank you so much for joining us. I am also a registered provisional psychologist here at the Edmonton Oliver PCN, so I'm excited to have you here. And we're hoping that you would learn some skills and some tricks and some tips from us today. Thank you guys so much for coming.
awesome. So feel free to have the resource package printed off or on your computer so you can follow along. There will be some information in there that will get you to fill out. So have a pen and paper handy as well. And we really look forward to bringing this forward to you today. And we hope that you enjoy and learn some new skills and techniques.
Perfect. Right, so we will begin by just exploring a definition of communication. So in its most simplest form, communication is the way in which we exchange information between individuals, right? And to do this, we can use symbols, signs, and also behaviors. So in the process of communication, we have three components. We have the sender, the message, and the receiver. So for example, in this perfect example right now, I am the sender of the information. Everyone who is watching this and is a part of this group is the receiver. And what we're talking about as in communication, the different types of communication, is the message. And then we also have nonverbal communication. So nonverbal communication involves gestures, facial expression, body stance, proximity to the listener, our eye contact. It also involves our pitch, our tone, the content, and how is it that we express ourselves. So the words we choose is actually extremely important. So for example, have you ever heard someone says, "It's not what you said, but how you said it," right? So what that means, our tone communicates just as much as the words that we're using. So it will be kind and mindful of us just to be more conscious of the way in which we're communicating and our tone. So in the event where we want to communicate a soft message, it's important that we reduce that tone. If it's in the case where we want to be assertive, our tone may just be different.
So think to yourself if you've ever misunderstood what someone was saying or based what someone said on an assumption. We really want to kind of keep that in mind. So focusing on the emphasis of words, so depending on where the emphasis is in a sentence, changes the meaning of that sentence. So as I kind of go through each of these sentences, I want you to ask yourself, what is this meaning to you? And I'll also let you know at the end of each sentence. So, I didn't take that money. This implies that potentially somebody else did. I didn't take that money. Note that there's kind of some denial here. I didn't take that money. This implies that I didn't take it, but I know something about it. I didn't take that money. This implies that I might have taken some other money. I didn't take that money. This implies that I didn't take the money, but I might have took something else. So overall, approaching which words we emphasize will convey different meanings to different people. Therefore, we have to check in with the other person to make sure that their interpretation was the same as the message was to be intended.
Perfect. So now we're going to explore what is interpersonal effectiveness and what are interpersonal skills. So interpersonal effectiveness is doing what works when we are interacting with another person. So interpersonal skills are traits that we may have that helps us to communicate effectively when speaking to someone else. So for example, interpersonal skills include active listening, teamwork, responsibility, dependability, leadership, motivation, flexibility, patience, and empathy. What factors applies to you?
Awesome. So factors that get in the way of interpersonal effectiveness, which is what Candace was talking about, might be that you don't have the interpersonal skills that you need. Or maybe that you don't know what you really want from the other person. So you might have those skills, but you can't really decide what you need from the other person. You also can't figure out how to balance your needs versus the other person's needs. So maybe are you asking for too much versus not asking for anything, or saying no to everything versus giving in to everything? Potentially your emotions are getting in the way, right? You might have those skills, but emotions such as anger, pride, contempt, fear, shame, or guilt are more controlling what you're doing. You forget your long-term goals for short-term goals. So you might put your immediate urges and wants ahead of your own long-term goals. The future vanishes from your mind. Maybe other people are getting in your way, right? You might have those skills, but other people get in the way. Maybe other people are more powerful than you, or other people might be threatened by you, or might not like you getting what you want. Other people may not do what you want unless you sacrifice your self-respect, at least a little. Potentially the last one, your own thoughts and beliefs are getting in the way, right? You're worrying about negative consequences if you ask for what you want or say no to someone's request. Your beliefs that you don't deserve what you want stop you in your tracks, or beliefs that others don't deserve what they want make you ineffective.
Perfect. And now we're going to move into the 4 types of communication. So as you see here on your screen, there are 4 types of communication: aggressive, passive aggressive, assertive, and passive. And we're going to go through each type separately. So first, we're going to explore assertive communication. So assertive communication is the ideal form of communication. It is based on mutual respect for both the person who is speaking and also the listener. Assertiveness also involves expressing your own feelings and being able to ask for what you want and being able to say no if you don't want something. Assertive communication does not guarantee that you will always get what you want as the speaker. However, it improves the likelihood that the listener will listen to you. And it also highlights the fact that you also have a personal choice as a listener if it is that you want to agree with what the person is saying. Also, there's a time and place for being passive and also for being aggressive, especially when there's a safety concern. So now we're going to go through each type individually.
So the first type, as mentioned, is assertive communication. So assertive communication is a way of communicating our feelings, thoughts, and beliefs in an open, honest manner without violating the rights of others. It's an alternative to being aggressive, where we abuse other people's rights, and an alternative to being passive, where we abuse our own rights. And this is taken from Module 2 of the CCI Assert Yourself booklet.
Perfect. So now we're going to explore passive communication. So passive communication is when we yield to someone else's preference while discounting our own rights and our own needs, maybe by a byproduct of growing up in a perfectionistic environment, or by growing up in an environment where we are not encouraged to express our needs and our feelings, or where we feel as though it's important that other person's needs go before us, or we place extreme emphasis on being nice or being pleasing, or we may feel guilty if we should ever ask for what we want. And perhaps we do this out of fear of the person may be upset with us, the person may alienate us, or we feel as though we depend on the person somewhat.
So some of the passive communication styles, our body language might be more slouch posture, standing at a distance, avoiding eye contact. Your voice might be low, hesitant, maybe apologetic looking, nervous or fidgety. Intentions to please others, avoid rejection or others' angers, to not hurt other people's feelings. Some benefits here might be that people might like you a little bit more because you don't make those waves, right? You might feel a little bit a sense of control because people don't abandon you, or you don't have to deal with anyone else's feelings. This also can be a life-saving strategy in abusive situations. So some cost to you is that you might feel used or do things that you don't want to do. Might feel depressed, resentful, and bitter. Health concerns might come in the way. You might use substances to push down or give the courage maybe to release that energy when the pressure is just too great. Your feelings and needs might not be valued in a passive communication style. So moving forward to the aggressive communication style, this is where aggressive communication might come across as not respecting the needs, opinions, or feelings other than your own. You might not apologize or don't feel the need to apologize for things even when they are your fault. Don't respect the rights of others. Feel like others have the right to ask, or feel like others don't have the right to ask for what they want. And then avoid discomfort even at the risk of conflict. So the body language and voice behaviors might be a threatening posture or standing very close, kind of an in-your-face sort of behavior, closing your fists or pointing fingers, having a cold eye or staring the other person down with a loud or soft, harsh voice. Your intentions might be in control, or if others get in your way, to cover up those feelings of vulnerability, to meet the needs and wants at others' expenses, to dominate, intimidate, or punish. Some benefits to being aggressive is to feel powerful and in control. You get your own way because others give in. You don't let your walls down. There might be this release of energy. You don't have to use that self-discipline here. And this can also be a life-saving strategy in some situations. But some cost to being aggressive is maybe shame and guilt for hurting others, alienating others. There might be no closeness or lack of intimacy. And we might use substances to deal with that guilt or shame.
Yeah. So the other type that we will explore is passive aggressive communication style. So this is when you express aggressive feelings through passive resistance. For example, angry at your boss, so you are perpetually late for work. You don't want to comply with a request, so you procrastinate, or you use the excuse that, oh, I forgot. Don't ask for what you want. Instead, you perpetually mourn and complain about what is lacking. Rarely get what you want because you don't get your point across clearly. So what are some of the body language and voice and tone that is a part of a passive aggressive communication style? So our words don't match our body language. We say things in a very sarcastic tone. We may say things that we mean just in a very joking way, not looking at the other person or talking behind their backs. Our intention, mask up and pent up our feelings in an attempt to manipulate what's going on. So there are some benefits of communicating using a passive aggressive style. We may just do it just to feel a bit righteous. We may just want to blame others. We may just want to feel in control of getting back at someone. People keep guessing by not giving straight answers or not taking responsibility for your feelings by hiding them. The cost: resentment, frustration, bitterness, feeling persecuted because people don't trust you, feeling sorry for yourself, or noticing that people are starting to avoid you. The use of substances to numb your feelings.
So those are the 4 different types of communication styles. So what we're going to do here is take about 5 minutes, and you can pause this video for some time for self-reflection. So I want you to go into your resource package and complete the Assertiveness Personnel Survey. And this will just kind of be to look at really how assertive are you. So take a minute to do that, and then in the next slide, we'll go through how to kind of score your survey.
Perfect.
So here we're just interpreting the results of this assertiveness personnel survey. So questions 1 to 24 indicate a more passive behavior. So really some questions to ask yourself is, do these answers really tell you if you're rarely speaking up for yourself? Or are they perhaps some specific situations that might trouble you or cause you some stress or anxiety? Questions 25 to 35 are just more where you stand in aggressive behaviors. So asking yourself, do these answers or do your answers to these questions suggest that you're pushing others around, maybe more than you realized? Note that each person really behaves differently in each situation, depending on the situation and the time. However, it is possible that you might have characteristics of each communication style, but you might more lean heavily in one direction or another.
Yeah. So where do you line up? So based on that survey, a good question to ask yourself is that what style of communication do I normally use? And write down 3 things that describe the way you communicate. So refer to the resource, the day one self-reflection, question 1 in the handout, and take a moment to think about what style of communication do I use. And write down 3 things that describes the way in which you communicate.
So after reflecting on the way that you communicate, some of these, some of the things that you wrote down might reflect some myths, right? Some myths about communication, and that really get in the way of interpersonal effectiveness, as Candace mentioned previously. So we're going to start here, and there's in altogether 24 of them. So we're just going to go through all 24, and this is in the same handout, and you can go read along with us together. So number 1, I don't deserve to get what I want or need. If I make a request, this will show that I am a very weak person. I have to know whether a person is going to say yes before I make a request. If I ask for something or say no, I can't stand it if someone gets upset with me. If they say no, it will kill me. Making requests is a really pushy, bad, self-centered, selfish, etc. Saying no to a request is always a selfish thing to do. I should be willing to sacrifice my own needs for others. I might be really inadequate if I can't fix this myself. Obviously, the problem is in my head. If I would just think differently, I wouldn't have to bother everyone else. If I don't get what I want or need, it doesn't make a difference. I don't really care. Skillfulness is a sign of weakness. I shouldn't have to ask, say no. They should know what I want and just do it. They should have known that their behavior would hurt my feelings. I shouldn't have to tell them. I shouldn't have to negotiate or work at getting at what I want. What people should be willing to do more for my needs. Other people should like, approve of me, and support me. They don't deserve my being skilled or treating them well. Getting what I want when I want is most important. I shouldn't be fair, kind, courteous, or respectful of others if they're not towards me. Revenge will feel so good, it will be worth any negative consequence. Only wimps have values. Everybody lies. Getting what I want is more important than how I get it. The ends really do justify the means. So just a side note here, if you haven't noticed that numbers 1 through 12 are more passive and 13 through 24 are more of an aggressive communication style. But
Yeah.
these myths get in the way of keeping or improving relationships and as well self-respect.
So now as we reflect upon the myths that Vanessa explored with us, now it's important for us to ask ourselves some very important questions. What are your beliefs about communication? What are my beliefs? How strong are those beliefs? Is there a more helpful or balanced belief that I can now utilize or I can now begin to use as a result of learning all these new skills about communication?
So as we kind of move forward into the myths about assertiveness, myth number 1, I am assertive, I will get what I want. So this is not necessarily true. Being assertive does not mean that you always get what you want. In fact, being assertive does not guarantee any outcome at all. Being assertive is actually about expressing ourselves in a way that respects both your needs and the needs of others. Sometimes this means that you get what you want. Sometimes you won't get what you want at all. And sometimes you'll come to a mutually satisfactory compromise.
And the next myth we will explore is assertiveness is the same thing as being aggressive. And that's not true. Some people who are aggressive think they're being assertive because they're stating their needs. It is true that both assertive and aggressive communication involves stating your needs. However, there are very important differences between stating your needs assertively and stating them aggressively. There are differences in the words we use, our tone, our body language. Assertiveness says only the requester needs is important versus, no, sorry, aggressiveness says only the requester's need matters versus assertiveness states both parties' needs matter. Both the sender and the receiver are important.
So, myth number 3, being assertive will just happen. Not necessarily. So, as an example here, assertiveness is a learned behavior as well as a learned thinking style. We're all born assertive. So, think of a baby. When a baby cries, they want something, they express their emotion feeling. Then, gradually, as they grow up, they adapt their environment to fit in with the responses that they receive from the environment. So, that is the responses they receive from family, peers, workmates, authority figures, etc. Being assertive is a skill. It can be learned, but it also requires practice. So practice it often. Assertiveness requires you to practice in many different situations. And don't forget to praise yourself for your good efforts.
Myth number 4. If I am assertive, I have to be assertive in every situation, which is not necessarily true. Understanding how to be assertive provides you with the choice of when to be assertive. It does not mean that you have to be assertive in every situation. You may come to the realization that certain situations require you to be passive and not necessarily assertive. For example, if you're in a bar and someone begins to be very aggressive or violent, then being assertive may place you at risk. In this case, you may make a decision that a passive approach is most beneficial. Learning to be assertive is about providing yourself with a choice and knowing when to be assertive versus when not to be assertive. Assertiveness is appreciated by everyone. Everyone will support me becoming assertive. Absolutely not true. Each communication style has its positive aspects and also its negative. It's important to acknowledge these as you may become to realize that there are costs of being assertive. For example, a cost of being assertive is that people around you may have been getting some benefit from you not being assertive or from you being passive. If they are typically aggressive, they may want to get things done their way. They may not want to change. If you are aware of this possibility, it will perhaps make it easier for you to change.
So now that we've kind of debunked all the myths of assertiveness, we want to go into different types of assertiveness here. So basic assertiveness really might sound like, I need to be gone by 5, right? So it's quite basic. Then there's an empathetic assertiveness, which means that we're trying to understand other people's needs. So for example, I know you're busy at the moment, John, but I'd like to make a request from you, right? So we're kind of empathetic with the fact that he's busy. A consequence assertiveness is about, this is kind of should be a last resort. And this is when is used when we're not when people are not taking care of our rights. So it can easily be seen as aggressive or threatening. So we want to be a little bit careful here. So this might sound like, if this occurs again, I'm left with no alternative but to apply with a formal disciplinary procedure. I'd prefer not to. A discrepancy assertiveness might be used when there is a misunderstanding. So it's useful when their words don't match the person's actions. So for example, as I understand it, we agreed with that project A was top priority. Now you're asking me to give more time for project B. I'd like to clarify which is more of a priority. With negative feelings assertiveness, it's used when we're experiencing very negative feelings towards the other person, such as maybe anger, resentment, hurt, and so forth. So in a controlled and calm way, you want to draw attention to the undesirable effect this other person's behavior is having on you. So when you come home without telling me, I worry that something is wrong and I feel angry. I would really appreciate it if you would call me just to let me know beforehand you're running late. A broken record assertiveness is really a skill that involves preparing what you're going to say and then repeating it exactly as often as necessary in a calm and relaxed manner. This skill can be applied in most situations, and for the most part, if you're a parent, you might know that this is specifically used with children, but can be used with anyone. So for example,
Vanessa, may I borrow $20 from you, please?
I can't lend you any money. I've run out.
I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I promise. I need it desperately. You're my friend, right?
I can't lend you any money. I've run out. So that's an example.
Perfect. So now we're going to look at what does assertiveness look like. So we have an idea of what it sounds like, but what does it look like in form of nonverbal communication? So assertiveness means direct eye contact without staring the person down or without looking intimidating. Standing straight and balanced with an open body stance. Open arms movement, being welcoming, smiling when pleased, frowning when angry and your jaw relaxed.
So now we want to know what assertiveness sounds like. So assertiveness might be a firm, relaxed voice. The volume's appropriate, we're not yelling, but it's also not too soft. We want to use I statements. So those might be, for example, I like, I want, I don't like. We're also using cooperative phases. So for example, what are your thoughts on this? Or how does this fit with your ideas? The empathic statements of interest. So I would like to. A distinction between the fact and opinion. So my experience is different. Constructive criticism also without blame. So for example, I feel irritated when you interrupt me. And we also want to use open-ended questions. So we want to use the how and what questions, not why.
And now we're going to look at different types of statements that we can use. So there are I statements and there are you statements. So you statements are aggressive versus I statements are assertive. So I messages is an effective way of communicating your feeling to another person without being non-confrontational, as opposed to using you statements, where you statements sound as though we're accusing the person of doing something. I messages are about owning our own feelings and not blaming someone else for how we feel. This is important because when we communicate using I statements, it is less likely that the person will view what we are saying in a negative way. I statements sound like I feel frustrated and annoyed when I'm told to do my housework because I am able to take care of my home very well on my own. These messages are not a cure-all, and they're not a guarantee that the person will receive your message effectively. But they're a way in which we can reduce the likelihood that conflict will happen. For example, this is technically a I message. I feel mad when my partner acts like an idiot. But what is wrong with that? It is not helpful, and it even crosses the line of verbal abuse. iMessages needs to be accompanied by a sincere nonverbal behavior and a supportive relationship. Being kind. Remember to look at the person when you're speaking to them and use a kind voice and be respectful to the other person's feelings. Now, please refer to page 4 on your resources on I statement.
So using the desk script, and this might be a new term to you, is all about basically interacting using I statements. We don't have to use all of this together. We can use it separately, but we're going to kind of go through these each individually. So starting with the D, describe. Describe the behavior or situation as completely and objectively as possible. Just the facts. So for example, the last time my brother George came to visit, I cleaned the entire house by myself. Then we want to express. So we want to express the feelings and thoughts about the situation. Try to phrase your statements using I and not you. So beginning sentences with you, as Candace mentioned, often puts people on the defensive, which means that they won't really listen to you or won't receive your message in a well manner. So for example, as a result, I was exhausted and angry. Then specify. Specify what behavior or outcome you would prefer to happen. Example, I would like the two of us to work on cleaning the house together. Consequence. Now remember, the consequence can be both positive and negative. So remember that there's both alternatives here. So for example, if we both work together, the house will be cleaned up faster and we can all enjoy this visit together. Or for example, if we work together, I will be less tired and irritable. So as I mentioned, you can put this all together. So the last time my brother George came to visit, I cleaned the entire house all by myself. As a result, I felt exhausted and angry. I would like the two of us to work together on cleaning the house. If we work together, the house will be cleaned up faster and I will be less irritable and less tired. It's not always necessary, as mentioned, to say the entire desk script together. An abbreviated script will do for those occasions when a short, assertive message is needed. So refer to the desk script example and homework page that you can work on this and try one out for yourself. So as we end part 1, I really want you to try some of the techniques that you learned today. So practice creating the desk script for a current issue or maybe an issue in the past. Practice stating the desk script in the mirror, observing your tone, pitch, volume, and body language. Modify the behaviors that are more in line with being assertive. Practice using the desk script maybe with someone. See how it comes across. See how they take it. And then as well, you can also go online and complete the Center for Clinical Interventions Assert Yourself workbooklet for more information and self-reflection. We hope that you enjoyed today, and we look forward to starting part 1 with you after you've had some time to practice. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.